Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And in today's video, I wanted to talk about this article from Seeking Alpha. And the title states, T-Mobile, Unstoppable Growth in the 5G Era. I mean, with this article, they're pretty much saying, AT&T, Verizon, go and pack it up, lay down, you're done. You're finished. You're not going to be able to compete. You're not going to be able to win anything. T-Mobile is unstoppable. That's pretty much what this title is alluding to from Seeking Alpha. Now, this comes with very strong points. I get it. I understand. And before I touch on the summary and get into the article, I do want to point out why it's so significant that AT&T outgrew T-Mobile these last two quarters in the most significant segment of the business, the most profitable and the lucrative. The reason it's so significant and why it matters is because T-Mobile offers free lines. They offer on their most premium plan, lines 3 and 4 are 50% off. That is something that AT&T does not do. They don't do it unless you are military or you're a first responder or you're a teacher or medical staff. Then you can get, in some cases, first net pricing is different and cheaper versus the consumer. And then in the military cases, you do get 25% off. So it is significant that AT&T outgrew T-Mobile these last two quarters. That is a huge hurdle to overcome if you are asked that question. How come AT&T outgrew you when you're offering all these free lines and lines 3 and 4, 50% off on your most expensive premium plan? That is a hurdle. And you have my guess, as I mentioned in the previous video, if AT&T does it again, that's going to be a problem. It's just going to be an issue because of all of the free lines and all of the other discounts and insider discounts that T-Mobile is offering. It's almost like, just for an analogy, it's almost like if Cadillac, the most expensive premium luxury, was selling far more than a Ford Focus. That, for investors, should be concerning. It should be a problem. Why is that happening? And it's the same here. AT&T across the board is more expensive versus all the discounts and promos that T-Mobile is offering, and AT&T is simply outgrowing them the last two quarters. That should not be happening. The reason I state that, it just shouldn't be happening. T-Mobile naturally should be the biggest growth in the industry based on all the promos that they're offering. So let's get into some of these summaries very quickly. I don't want this video to become too long, but it likely will have some length to it. After completing its merger with Sprint, T-Mobile has taken advantage of a massive spectrum edge against AT&T and Verizon communications. So they got a point there. C-band is delayed, and throughout the holiday season, T-Mobile will be able to claim that leadership, and reports come out, there will be a wider performance gap that they'll be able to market. And if we know T-Mobile, they are loud, so they're going to let that be known. T-Mobile will likely have the broadest 5G coverage. They already have that. There's no disputing that. But again, overall network, Verizon and AT&T still beat them. As per management, 2022 is expected to be a big year for T-Mobile, as it will be leading America into the 5G era. Again, scalability is important. That's something that T-Mobile lacked. That's something that they're going to gain with the Sprint merger. So 2022 is likely where we'll see N41 at its biggest scale, and then into 2023, we'll see it get even to a bigger scale. The company's prospects show that the current price is undervalued. So in this case, recently, Raymond James, I believe, gave the stock a price target of $158. That's a significant gain if they can manage. I think they have to hit it by April in order for SoftBank to get that money that's due for them. So they have some investment thesis. Not going to really go through that because I'm not a financial analyst. I will leave this article in the description, and you guys can check that out for yourselves. So again, 5G leadership, very important here that T-Mobile really pushes this. I wish their CapEx was a little higher so they would put that emphasis on it and take that leadership even further, because they are ahead. Let's not let up. Let's keep it moving forward. Push it. and then let AT&T and Verizon just naturally catch up and do what they have to do to get to that level. But for now, Verizon and AT&T are significantly outspending T-Mobile, and that could potentially increase even more as the years go on. We don't know. CapEx could increase for AT&T and Verizon. They have the cash flow to do it. They could go from $2 billion to $4 billion on C-band spend if they choose to. If they feel the performance gap and the performance leadership from T-Mobile is really affecting their numbers in terms of growing and customers leaving, they can do that. They can raise it another $2 billion. They have the free cash flow to do so. And AT&T will be able to do the same. So they can apply pressure that way to close that performance gap, especially as T-Mobile gains more scale into rural America. And that's where I think, regardless of anything else that you see here for the rest of the article, regardless of the reports, regardless of open signal, the performance gap, the most important part, I think, is over the next several years is that rural expansion. It has to be. That's the biggest upside and the quickest upside that T-Mobile is going to be able to gain. Quick. As they expand the network over the next several years, they're going to be able to gain share in the rural markets. And that's very important because Mike Sievert stated it again during the the third quarter earnings call to the analysts. Overall, in the top 50, once you combine all the share, they are number one. They have the most share in the top 50 markets. Now, of course, there are still some of the markets where AT&T has the most share and Verizon has the most share, but they're saying overall, combining all the markets in the top 50, they are number one in the markets now where it's very saturated, very competitive. So it's kind of a wash. You gain one, you give up one. So there's not a lot of share or a lot of growth to obtain there anymore. Now you in those markets, and then leading up to the top 100, now you want to grow and get more revenue from your home internet product. So that's what T-Mobile's chasing. But on pure growth and getting those numbers back to the leading growth that they're used to, they have to get into rural. They know this. They know they have to, because that's where AT&T and Verizon have ultimately no competitors. They're just throwing people back and forth to each other. Hey, let me get those 5. Okay, those 5 churned. I'll take those 5. That's ultimately just between them two. Now T-Mobile is going into those areas already starting this year and even more next year with stores, network, and then of course they have to expand that network. Once they start gaining share in those areas, they have to start expanding it over to the neighboring towns. You know, if family members visit other family members over in the next town, there has to be continuous service. Or if not, you're settling on cancellation. Because if one goes to another town and they don't have service, they're going to leave. So T-Mobile has to be very well aware of that, but it's going to take time. It's not going to happen within it was never set to happen within the first 18 months. Just not enough time. Just not enough. So the next time I'm going to hold their feet to the fire. I'm going to start looking at this expansion. I'm going to start really tracking it. We're going to start looking next year. I'm thinking by 2024 is when we should see a significant growth on the crowdsourced maps, on the pure coverage itself, where we can say, okay, looking at pictures from 2021 to 2024, okay, now I can see, oh snap, they expanded, they're growing at a very, very, very rapid pace on the crowdsourced maps. But for now, that's going to be very, very, very small in terms of how quickly they're expanding. The Sprint sites, the Keep sites that we're going to have in terms of coverage, those are already there because they're added into the core. So if you're a T-Mobile customer traveling into Sprint territory, it's going to roam on the Sprint network, no problem. It's going to be considered native. You won't even notice it. So that coverage is already there now. T-Mobile just has to go back to those sites and add their equipment on it. But regardless of what happens, that coverage is already active today. So if you travel into Nebraska where T-Mobile virtually has no service, Sprint coverage will pick up. Sprint covers about half of that state. I've been kind of looking into that. They cover roughly about half of the state with their own network. So T-Mobile customers will have access to that. And there are areas such as the Chantel areas in Virginia, again, T-Mobile customers will be able to roam on that. So that's not a big deal. So the performance gap is really going to be in T-Mobile's favor for the next several months. It really is. But for many of you, that won't matter. Many of you want overall bigger coverage. So again, postpaid accounts, postpaid ARPA, that's increasing. That's good to see. And I think that'll further increase. But to sit there and say that T-Mobile's growth is unstoppable, I don't tend to agree with that, because AT&T and Verizon will have a fight to go fight. They will fight and they will compete and they will spend what they need to spend to get on par or exceed, because they still overall have the bigger networks today. T-Mobile will have to gradually increase their coverage over the next several years to try and get there. AT&T and Verizon are bigger as of today, right now. If you go on there, if you go into areas where T-Mobile may not work for you and you switch over to Verizon and AT&T, chances are, if you randomly land anywhere in the United States, in terms of rural, you are way more likely to have service with Verizon or AT&T versus T-Mobile. That's kind of what the stats are hinting at. So again, 5G leadership is in T-Mobile's hands. It's their race to lose, as many are saying. I hope they have 14 to 15 billion in the capex, but again, that's not what they guided for the next several years. So that's kind of probably what it will be. Unless the synergies or they get some kind of faster growth in terms of profits, then we may see another increase in the capex as we did this year. They went from 12 billion to 12.3 billion. But other than that, I think the numbers are going to be the same. And I think T-Mobile is just going to try to work it each year gradually. So let me know what you think about this in the comment section. I'll leave the article in the description so you guys could check it out. Make sure you do so. It's a very good informational article. There are more slides in there. Again, the Sprint customer, they're leaving, they're churning. There's just nothing T-Mobile can do right now to stop that. That bleeding is going to keep happening. They're at 1%, and most of that coming from the Sprint base. So that's going to keep happening. T-Mobile is well aware. It looks like they're fine with it. They're fighting for those customers back regardless, because they're cheaper. They know it. If they go to the other carriers, they're going to spend more money, and that's how they'll likely fight for that customer back over time. So again, leave all your comments in the comment section down below. Look forward to reading them. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you are notified when I do upload content. Make sure to follow all of my social media outlets for more updates and interactions. Thanks again for watching. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. I will see you in the next one. Peace.